So Mehdi Hasan spoke to, and his name eludes me now, so I'll just go to the show notes, Joe Walsh. Joe Walsh is a former Republican congressman. And Joe Walsh wanted to have a conversation. You can see Joe Walsh is in mid-scream there. He does spend a lot of time quite literally screaming. But the reason I wanted to show this, it's just a couple of minutes, is actually we talk about this a lot, about how in particular the right like to play whataboutism. You mention something about national, they go, yeah, but what about Jacinda? You know, you mention something about something down that's not good at the moment, let's say, I don't know, economic thing, and they go, oh yeah, but the spending under Labour. And Mehdi Hasan does something really good here when talking about Israel and Hamas to show how to answer these questions. So the content's interesting in and of itself. Actually, you know what I'm going to do, Chewie? I'm just going to refresh it because that last time we did this, it decided not to work as in that last clip. So I'm just going to do a quick refresh on 1321 and then make sure it's still on 1321 and then I'll push play. It's actually entertaining. It's good content anyway when they're talking about Israel and what's going on there in Hamas and, you know, the war crimes that are being. I had an interaction with someone the other day, Chewie, a religious person, and we were talking about Israel, Gaza, and the conversation was so funny. Well, when I say funny, I mean interesting, that we started off by talking about Russia, and the gentleman I was speaking to, who was a churched person, kept using the word occupied land to do with Russia and Ukraine, and how, you know, Russia and the occupied land, it's not okay. Russia and occupied land. And then we started talking about Israel and Gaza, and I went, you mean the occupied land? And he looked at me. And I kind of went, because, you know, that's just what we've been talking about. And you evoked the word occupied land, how it wasn't, and it's kind of the same. And the conversation didn't really go anywhere. But the thing that I realized in talking to him is what I will say to these people now, and this is unchallengeable because it's the legal definition of it, is that if you support Israel, and all Israel does, then by definition you are supporting war crimes. I mean, the person I was talking to had that constant, but they drop leaflets and tell them to move. Yeah, that's called, what is it? Forced relocation. It's a war crime. You're not allowed to do that. It's a war crime. So if we can get as far as, yes, person X supports Israel and they're okay with the war crimes, or even, and yes, Israel are committing war crimes, that's actually a step in the right direction. But most people will then try and play games and say they're not war crimes, when just every definition is they are. And the thing that we've always talked about, how when you go on to media, when we see people going on to media, constantly having to state that they do not support the actions of Israel. They do not, rephrase, of Hamas. They denounce Hamas, but people never really ever get asked, do they denounce Israel's actions? And now we'll go back to Mehdi Hasan, because that's kind of what he's doing here again. That actually bombing of civilians, that forced removal of people, the word's just leaving my head, is a war crime. There are other war crimes going. Do you denounce those actions of Israel? And people like this former congressman, they kind of can't, because they're involved with lobby groups and stuff that give full-throated, wholehearted, 100% unchallengeable support of Israel. But let's have a look. Oh, I probably should put the mute off, shouldn't I? Here we go.
You are a supporter of the Israeli government, so I'm going to ask you about Israel.
And
you can do whataboutism all you want. Again, that's what MAGA people do here. When you ask them about MAGA, what do? They blame the Democrats. So let's not play that game. Let's ask you about Israel.
Mehdi, it's not the MAGA game. I'm going to say yes, Israel's made mistakes. I'm going to say yes.
War crimes.
Israel,
no, I'm asking war crimes.
Israel, call it what you want. Israel.
No, I'm asking you to call it.
And I'm going to tell you. I don't know. I'm going to tell you.
No, Joe. No, I'm not going to let you run away with it. You can shout all you want. 335 bullets fired into a car with children. Is that a war crime?
So this was an example. You probably know it. There was, I think, children and uncle and aunt and stuff. They were in a car, and from a tank, 335 bullets fired into the car. And you know, it's not that there's the odd, you know, like it's not the exception to the rule, Chewie. It's the rule. This is not don't just pulling out one one thing. There's dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of these examples.
Get away with it. You can shout all you want. 335 bullets fired into a car with children. Is that a war crime?
I don't. You know what? Could be. Investigate it. But God damn it,
it was investigated, Joe.
This is what Hamas does all the time.
Right. Joe,
hiding behind civilians is a war crime. You know what slays me about you?
By the way, you said I see you say this all the time.
What?
Hiding behind civilians, hiding behind civilians, and yet when Israelis actually use Palestinians as human shields, you don't say anything. Last week it emerged. I checked your Twitter, Joe. You can correct me.
What?
Last week it emerged that an 80-year-old man, Israeli press reported, was being used as a human shield. They were taking him into houses, putting him in front of them, an actual human shield. Right, they were using a Palestinian man. But they've done that many times. Do you know they've sent? Let me finish the sentence. They send Palestinians into tunnels in Gaza. Have you condemned that as? Have you condemned that as a use of human shield?
Was not aware of it, and if I was aware of it, I'd condemn it.
It's all over the Israeli press.
Why are you not acknowledging that this is Hamas's policy, and this has been their policy from day one?
What I acknowledge about Hamas is irrelevant because I don't support Hamas.
Let me hear you say it.
I don't support Hamas. Do you support Hamas?
No.
Do you support Hamas?
No.
Do you support Hamas?
No.
I don't support Hamas. So that's done. Do I support Israel?
Stop for a minute.
Can I finish a sentence?
No.
Can I finish a sentence?
Not when you don't let me finish sentences.
Joe, let me finish mine. But I promise I'll let you give a long answer. I'll give you a long.
So this is the bit coming up right now, which is really good.
Wow.
This is a really good way to further the conversation away from whataboutism and what Mehdi's about to do.
If you let me finish this one sentence. I don't support Hamas. Do you support Hamas?
No.
I don't support Israel. Do you support Israel?
Yes.
So, but that's what we're going to talk about. Now,
Stop.
Beautiful, eh? Isn't that beautiful? So the conversation's got nothing to do with Hamas, because we both are in agreement that acts of war crimes have been committed by Hamas. We agree. Where we disagree is Israel. So let's talk about that. Let's go about 25 seconds, then I'll let you at it, Chewie.
No.
It's very simple. You're here to support Israel.
No, but stop. But Hamas.
Why don't I talk about something we both disagree with?
Hamas has been the governing entity in Gaza for how many years? So yes, you do need to talk about Hamas, because Hamas did what they did on October 7th.
And we've condemned it.
Hamas has a history. Do you condemn? Yes. Do you condemn?
But you're not condemning Israeli war crimes. That's what I don't understand. You're trying to dodge it with whataboutism about Hamas. It's a very simple question. I can keep going. Let's play a clip.
Do you want to play this? He shows him a clip now of a grandmother and a child waving a white flag. I'll show it. It's all blurred out, so we'll be fine because this is already been on YouTube. And just to say, there's example after example, just in case anyone is watching who doesn't really know what's going on. He shows a clip of a grandmother waving a flag, walking with a grandchild, and being taken out by an Israeli sniper. Obviously, that's all blurred. You don't see anything, so don't panic. But just as an example of what's going on.
Here, let's play a clip for you to watch. We got a clip of a grandmother. Here's a grandmother. Maybe you're not aware of this one. This is a Palestinian grandmother in her 50s. She's holding a child, right, in her arm. He's got a white flag. She's shot in cold blood by an Israeli sniper who's...
Mehdi, I don't know what the hell that was.
And then the next offence is, I don't know. I've never seen that. How we prove that to be real?
You can justify anything. Like it's an intellectual and moral inflexibility. You have picked your team, and you will not be persuaded.
Yeah.
And when it's shown in that way, it's stark. Like, and I don't understand it, right? Because people on our side of it seem to have absolutely no trouble saying the actions of Hamas at the start of this latest outburst absolutely fucking morally reprehensible.
Well, I would go personally.
Hiding amongst civilians.
At the music festival was a terrorist attack. I have no qualms in offering that as a solution as to what Hamas did. I don't know. It probably is an act of a war crime. I don't know if it would fit into the definition, depending on what Hamas is technically, but it's certainly an act of terror. It's terrorism, without question. War crime.
Easy.
No problem.
Easy, done. The Hamas, not good dudes. But you can't take this without the context around it, which all of these guys seem to want to do. They want to chop all of this up and put it in a nice little box that just shows a moral superiority or a cultural superiority in this whole thing. And there's people going, why are we watching this clip? It's so shouty. It's about showing you a tool when you're confronted with that same thing.
Yeah.
Like, rule out the static, rule out the extra noise, rule out the talking points that they want to hit you with, and get to the nub of the question. What's the disagreement?
Yeah.
And Pat, there's a reason Pat put it up. Mehdi did a masterful job there
Yeah.
of absolutely cutting to the bone
Yeah.
of the contention. One person is happy to condemn one side, the other person is not going to be moved. And it doesn't matter how much evidence you put in front of them. And there's tons.
Yeah.
Like if the argument is hiding behind civilians, there is so much documented proof of Israelis marching kids in front of their vehicles or elderly people in front of their vehicles, or putting civilians into tunnels before they send troops in. There's so much. And what I hate about this whole thing is we got to a ceasefire and this just disappeared out of the news cycle.
Yeah.
Right? Israel today cut off power to Gaza again. Aid convoys still not getting in. A ramp up of violence and persecution happening now in the West Bank, which had nothing to do with the attacks on October 7th. Completely, like, Hamas isn't there. Different government. Doesn't matter. It shows the whole thing. It is about land confiscation. It is about persecution of the Palestinian people. And I don't see how you can, like, even if you're going, yeah, I think Israel's justified in responding to these attacks in October, I can't see how you can sit here almost 2 years later and go, yeah, I'm still fine with it. I just don't see how you can.